IGN gave us 9 minutes of new Star Wars Jedi Survivor gameplay, and while this is awesome, and I think you should definitely go and watch it after this video, I did want to point out a few things, whether you've watched this video or not, that you'll A, want to pay attention to if you're about to go watch it, or B, if you've already watched it, you will want me to point out to you. So, without further ado, remember, if you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to leave it a big old like. If you enjoy content like this, you want more like it, be sure to check out that big used to be red button that says subscribe right underneath the video. Also, gotta thank my channel members. You guys help make these videos possible. If you want to join, get access to the exclusive perks that they get, be sure to check out that blue join button. Anyway, let's begin. So to set the stage, IGN tells us that this is on a planet called Kobo, which is set pretty early on in the game, and I'll go over a few reasons we can kind of tell that right off the bat. But first thing I want to point out is this looks like the planet from the trailers that we've seen so far. You've got the battle droids here. Cal even mentions that he sees a Lucrehulk for the first time since he was with Prof on Braca in Jedi Fallen Order, which I think is a cool little detail, nice little callback to Fallen Order, shows that Cal really kind of holds Prof near and dear still. Now, throughout the gameplay, we do see plenty of battle droids. We also see some of the bounty hunters. At least I think they're bounty hunters. It could be a number of things. It seems like it could either be a remnant of the separatists from the end of the Clone Wars, which 10 years later doesn't seem all that likely. They don't really get too much into who they are. I think the more likely scenario is they are a crime syndicate of some sort, whether they are bounty hunters or not, who have just taken control of the Lucrehulk that's able to control the droids, and they just use the droids as, you know, reinforcements for their regular bounty hunters, just bodies that they can throw at anyone trying to attack them, which makes sense and I think is probably the most likely scenario here. Now, getting into the gameplay, because that's really what we're here for, this really doesn't give us anything that has to do with story, to be honest. All we know is Cal is here because his ship crashed on a secret mission. That's it. Don't see any cutscenes, don't see any characters, nothing like that. So let's talk about the gameplay. First up, combat. Now, of course, the animations of this game are stunning. Honestly, they are vastly improved from Fallen Order. There's a lot of new parry animations that look really good. There's a couple that make me think the combat is a little bit different than it was in Fallen Order. Of course, in Fallen Order, if you do a perfect parry, and you can finish an enemy in one hit. Cal will, of course, do this really cool finisher animation. And there's some really cool new finisher animations in this game, and it seems like you're able to do it even if the enemy has a decent amount of health left. There's one where Cal's using the double-bladed lightsaber and he perfect parries somebody with an electro staff, and just, I mean, it's a great animation. And just the flow of the animation and everything, it just looks like it's going to be so satisfying to pull off in the game, and I'm hoping for a lot more like that. There are a couple times where you do see some of the more traditional animations with the single-bladed lightsaber. Now, speaking of the different lightsabers and lightsaber stances, that seems like something that is going to be a big focus as far as gameplay, and there's a couple things that make me think forethought and strategy as you go into different situations is going to play a big role in this game. Number one, you can use BD1 as binoculars, so you can look ahead, scout ahead, set objectives as to where you're going, which is really cool because, I mean, it just kind of adds this element of mystery to where you're going. Hopefully the maps are a bit more navigable than they were sometimes in Fallen Order. Fallen Order could get you turned around fairly easily, but usually you could always find your way with little hints on the virtual map BD1 had. But I think the ability to scout ahead and really be able to see where you might be going, have some high points that aren't just like the usual open world game, go up and, oh, I see the map is uncovered. It's actually a point to scout out from. I think that's a really cool mechanic if that's how it's really going to work. But the other thing that drives me into thinking that forethought and planning ahead and preparing for situations is the fact that Cal seems to only have 2 lightsaber slots available at a time. So we see different times where he has his single blade lightsaber, times where he has his dual wielding lightsabers, or times where he also has his double bladed lightsaber. But if you look at the bar in the heads up display, it shows that he only has 2 of those equipped at a time, which makes me think that either at meditation points or at certain points, maybe you have to go into a menu to do it. You can go in and you can set which 2 stances you're going to have available to you, but that you can't have all of your stances available to you all the time, which does seem odd because it feels like as you explore, you would want your entire armory available to you because different situations might require a different setup. But again, we'll have to see how it works. It could be something like a weapon wheel where you can choose between each one fairly quickly, but you have 2 that are very quickly available to you. Like you can just swap between the 2 in the middle of combat without going to a weapon wheel. Again, we didn't see any of that, so it's really hard to say as to how that's going to work. It could be the case that we have to stop and prepare for the encounters that we think we may be having ahead of us. Now, a couple things we don't see is going to be Cal's blaster pistol. You'll notice he has what looks like a space for a holster on his hip, but there's no blaster pistol there, which that stance may not yet be available in the story if it is something that is related to story progression, as well as the crossguard lightsaber. We don't get to see that either. Again, I think that's going to have to do with story progression, so we'll just have to see what's going on there when we unlock those things, if we even get to see those in actual gameplay. One thing you will definitely notice, especially with regards to combat, is Cal's connection to the Force. The Force bar seems a bit longer. It felt like a lot of the times in Fallen Order you would run out of your Force meter very, very quickly. You could chain together a couple of combos and then, well, it's time to parry and it's time to dodge around and use your health stims. That's really the only ways to get it back, which was a shame, because if you had to use a health stim just to refill your Force bar and you hadn't really lost a lot of health, that could get annoying because it feels like you're kind of wasting it. But so far here in Survivor, it looks like because Cal has progressed over time, become a stronger Jedi, his connection to the Force is of course much better with more training and whatnot. Not to mention his new abilities. There are some really cool new abilities that are shown off. His Force push is much more powerful. It seems like he's able to grab and hold enemies in the air and be able to use that against them, whether it's throwing them or pulling them closer to slash them with his lightsaber, or just dropping them to do some damage to them. There's also the fact that he can pick up objects in combat and throw it at enemies, which is something we didn't really get to do too much in Fallen Order, if at all, if I can remember. There's definitely a couple times where you can throw something back at someone that's being thrown at you, especially with like the rocket stormtroopers in that game, but it's not something that you came across all too often. This looks like there's just literal debris laying around and Cal can pick it up and throw it at an enemy that he's fighting. Now, one thing that stood out to a lot of people that is a bit of a mystery is this golden looking hourglass. There's no official name as to what it is or what purpose it serves. From the gameplay, it appears to refill your Force meter, and it appears to slow down time. Now, the person doing the gameplay wasn't exactly taking advantage of this and showing all of the different advantages that you can have with it, but it does seem like you can slow down time enough, so if you have, say, a very quick enemy, you can slow down time and you can go and attack them a little bit easier without them dodging out of the way too quickly. And also maybe slow down their attacks for parries and whatnot. And also, if you just want to get a couple open hits on somebody, it seems like a really good way to do that. Or in the most basic sense, just refilling your Force meter. It seems to refill very quickly in this little time slowdown thing that's going on, which we have seen in a previous trailer, but it wasn't clear exactly what it was until we saw this gameplay. So it is cool to see how it actually seems to work. But as far as details on it, why it's there, what purpose it serves, and how Cal learned this ability, we don't know. Now, you will notice in the trailer that Cal's vendetta against the wildlife of planets is still alive and well. But you will also notice that as far as traversal, Cal can also learn from the animals on these planets, as there is one part where Cal, he sees these, I'm assuming it's a variant of a bogling, kind of teaches him how to leap back and forth between these two narrow walls to be able to elevate to the top of this little cliff area. I think that's really cool. It seems like a very Jedi thing to be doing. Obviously, we're still just massacring the entire wildlife population of the planet for anything that is semi-hostile, which, I mean, who wouldn't be if they had seen all the other animals get attacked? I don't know. I know it's just for gameplay and I can suspend my disbelief. It's always funny in like Fallen Order. You just attack everything except for these little bogling creatures here in Survivor. They're going to teach us how to do things, and of course there are mounts. That is one thing that I'm glad we are going to be able to come across, are things that are friendly, that are animals. Again, that's probably one of the more Jedi feeling things that you can do that isn't the Force or using a lightsaber. So it is cool that he seems to be able to pick up things from the planet and essentially what the Force is giving him through the wildlife on this planet. Now, aside from learning how to hop between these walls, the other cool traversal thing that we get to see is, of course, the grapple. The grapple seems to have dedicated points in these little patches, kind of like in Fallen Order, how you could find patches of leaves or something that you can climb up. Very similar thing here, except there seem to be the dedicated grapple points, so Cal will be able to leap out somewhere and grapple to a point that he can climb up, which is a nice little touch, a nice little change up from what we had in the previous game, while still feeling mostly familiar. It's just a nice little wrinkle into the platforming. Now, we don't get to see the little lightsaber dig in a wall and slide down the side of a wall or something like that. We also don't get to see the mounts and how they might work, but honestly, we kind of already saw that in the previous trailer, and while I would be intrigued to see more of how that kind of a thing would work, it's something that can wait for the release of the game, because honestly, that's I think what we all need more than anything right about now. So anyway, let me know down below what you noticed about the trailer, what looks good to you, what doesn't look good to you. Let me know, let's have a conversation, and I will see you in the next video.